Hi, I'm Shane.
I'm Austin.
This is our deep dive into the posthuman.
Yeah.
Join us as we acquire the knowledge we need for us to be able to create our own vision of a posthuman world. Today we interview author of The Humanization of Beings, Professor Mark Jackson, to get his point of view of what it means to be human in a posthuman world.
I'd like to begin by, in an overview sense, by saying, for me, there are three different kinds of paradigms in which the notion of the posthuman has appeared. And these three paradigms operate in quite different kinds of ways. The first paradigm around the posthuman is a question around that very much comes from the work of Martin Heidegger. And it's a question around what fundamentally constitutes humanism, or the human as understood within the philosophical lineage of humanism. And I think back to probably one of the key texts that raised this issue as an issue was a book by Michel Foucault called The Order of Things. And at the end of that book, he says somewhat dramatically that man is not the oldest problem in the history of thinking, and that man, as in the humanist man, is a figure that can be erased as easily as a line drawn in the sand being erased by the waves coming onto the sand. When we speak of the human and the posthuman, there's an assumption that we know what the human is, and that human is a humanist. And so that epoch itself can shift. And in that shift, we have something that is post, beyond that very fundamental philosophical, ontological understanding of the human. A second paradigm is one that I associate with, say, some of the early work of Donna Haraway and her work on cyborgs, and that the human, however we might ontologically want to encounter it, is a being who exists prosthetically, that the nature of nature itself is only technologically encounterable, and therefore the nature of the human is only a technologically encounterable nature. Therefore, the second paradigm emphasizes much more the technical life world in which the human now exists. And therefore, this is a being who is primarily a teletechnological being, whose engagement with the world is through the technical. There's a third paradigm, which I must say is upon us now, which certainly wasn't upon us when Donna Haraway was writing back in the 1990s about cyborgs. And I associate this in particular with, say, there's a recent book by Rosie Bradotti on the posthuman and technology. But its orientation, or its paradigmatic shift from the work of cyborgs, is that it's within the framework of the Anthropocene. Now, the Anthropocenic notion of the human is a notion of the human whose existence is at stake. That is, there is not only the potential, but the expectation to think the extinction of the human. So the posthuman now is not what happens when the human becomes increasingly technologically enmeshed in a technical life world. I think discussion now about the post-human is what does it mean now to think? Not only to think, but to ask about can the human think a future in which the human simply isn't? That the human no longer exists as a species. And that is a crisis post-human. And I think that question is posed not in order for us to think about what we'll all be like when we're all in our graves, but more what is the strategic necessity in engaging with the human and its futurity, its possibility, that could avoid that scenario of the post-human. And that is probably one that radically questions the notion of the human as being a prosthetic being.
So answering the question, what is a human, is a big task. From what we have found out, the word human is always changing, just like humans themselves. Therefore, a post-human world won't be after human beings, but a place where the definition has changed and we again will evolve and continue to evolve.